Hey, what's going on, guys? Back with another video. I know it's been a while since I've done anything because one, I haven't had the money, and two, I've been super busy and life has just been a big... Anyway, in this video I'm going to be doing one part of a really big project, and I'm going to split this into separate videos because it's just going to be a really long video if I don't. So what I'm going to be doing is basically what's behind me. And this is what I have. I have a new turbo I'm going to put on there with a turbo blanket. I've got a whole exhaust here, the up pipe, the down pipe, everything, the whole exhaust, a new intercooler from a 2018 STI, gaskets, and I also have an oil catch can. I've been collecting this stuff for quite a while now, and it's taken a while since I really don't have a whole lot of money to begin with, but I finally have everything because I wanted to do this all in one go, because most of this stuff on here you have to take off, like you have to take off the intercooler anyway if you want to do the up pipe, and if you take off the up pipe you have to take off the down pipes. Like most of the stuff all has to come off anyway, so I said, well, you know, might as well do it in one go. Alright guys, so I am under the car and I'm gonna do the best I can to record this to make it an easy step-by-step. So everything down here, this is the end of the car, that's where the muffler is. Everything down there, along with right up here, are just the rubber hangers that you have to deal with. And now I've moved all the way up here. Oh, this is really hard. So right up there is the front of the car, and if we follow it up, we've got the down pipe coming down, and there is one bracket that I got to take off. It's a 14 millimeter. It's this one right here. So you have this bracket that holds really the whole thing on. The only bolt, everything else is looks like hangers so far. So I'm going to take this one down, and then the hangers at the end, and this whole exhaust should end up just hanging down. Okay, so I was able to get that bracket off, and then coming down here I got that rubber piece off. That wasn't too hard. It just kind of slid over if you yank on it a little bit. And then I started having issues back here at the muffler, because we have this one, and it looks like what you're supposed to do is take off the screw that goes in there so this whole thing drops down, but I don't have anything that fits on the other side. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is welded in place and the bolt goes in through the other side, which makes it really hard to get to, because obviously this stuff isn't easy to get off, so I need a breaker bar in there, and I don't have any breaker bar that fits in this little space back here. So what I did is I came over to the other side, the right hand, well, facing the back of the car. And for this, what I did is I actually got my breaker bar, the end of it, and I pushed right here on the back of it while it was still attached up here. While it was up there, I just pushed on it until it popped out, and then I rotated it down. And now that that's off, the whole exhaust can actually move back and forth like that really easily, so I can get the other side. And then the other one that's right back there, there's another hanger back there with the rubber on it. It's that one right there. Once I get those off, then I think I should have everything up until the downpipe. Alright, just got it. I got that last little hanger, and now the whole thing is dropped down. So now that it's hanging and we follow it up, there's one thing we have to do before we go on, and it's that right up there. A little hard to see, but it's your O2 sensor, the little bung thingy sticking up at the top. That's your O2 sensor, and it's attached by a wire. I did a video on how to get to that, and mine has been replaced, so I need to grab an O2 socket thing I got from AutoZone. So I grabbed this little thing. I got to figure out what size I need to pop it on there, wrench it off. Once I wrench it off, then the exhaust can come down without shredding that wire up there. So if you wanted to, down where the exhaust comes down here, then it makes that 90 degree. If you wanted to, you could remove it from here, but yeah, I tried and there's no way that thing is ever coming out. It is rusted to all hell. So I'm just gonna break this whole thing down in one piece. So now we gotta get under the hood. So here we are under the hood, and if you look down here, that is where we were just working, right down here. So we need to remove that, but that's connected to the turbo. I have to take the turbo off. I also have to take the intercooler off. If you're just doing the exhaust portion, you should just be able to take it off where I said to take it off, or if you're doing a downpipe, then you have to take off this heat shield and actually remove the downpipe from the turbo. So this is the whole reason why I'm doing this all in one go, is because basically everything has to come off. Okay, now that the intercooler is out of the way, the throttle body is nice and clean. A little bit dirtier than I thought it was up top where I couldn't see it, but doesn't matter, it's clean, didn't have to take it out. And next up, moving over here, this is where your turbo is. This is the inlet to the turbo. Just to make things easier, I'm going to take this bracket out of the way. This is the left side where it screws in for your intercooler. 12 millimeter and 12 millimeter bolt, take that out, and it kind of makes it a little bit easier to work on that over there. Okay, I finally got everything off for the shield to show you guys that if you don't have a pristine car, these bolts are going to snap off. But that's not a huge issue, because you don't need these bolts after you replace the turbo. You don't really need them at all. You just get rid of the shield and put on a blanket because it works much better. That's what I'm going to be doing. But there are a few that you need to get to. There is one here, one over on the side. If you look back here, there's a bracket. There's two that go there. There's one here and one further down there. And then the hard ones to get, there's two down here. Pretty much anywhere on here where you see a screw, you gotta take it off. So all the ones around there, and then once you finally get them off, break them or actually unscrew them, then you just have to wiggle this off and do something with it. I don't know. Son of a... Oh, there we go. So if you want a better look, got two holes there, those two down there, there's your bracket, and yep, that is your turbo shield that we will not be using anymore. Yes, I had to take the bottom off because I dropped a 10 mil and it got stuck. Damn it. With that heat shield out of the way, we can finally get this downpipe off. So to get the downpipe off that's connected to the hot side of the turbo, there are 5 bolts that we need to take off. You can see 2 up here, and then move around over to the side. There's another one that sticks out over here. And if you look over, there is one down here, and the other one you can really see at the bottom of the car. And here we are looking underneath. You can see the 3 bolts. That lowest one right over there, that's the one that you can't really see from up top. So take a little time, pop those bolts out. All those bolts up there are gonna be 14s. I've got my long breaker bar here that I'm just gonna finagle in wherever I can and pop those loose. Okay, it is officially the next day, and I finally got that last nut off. It was completely seized on there, and it was completely rounded off. All of the other bolts that I got off here were somewhat intact. I had 2 of them that snapped off, and that was just a big pain. I actually had to go to, you can get them at Lowe's or the auto parts store, but this is the one I got. but basically what this is an extractor, and it grabs onto anything that's rounded off like mine was, and grabs it and takes it out of there. Now the only issue is I need to figure out how to get this out so I can use this again. But anyway, that was a huge setback and it took me forever. So before we pry this thing off and it's loose, there's this little bracket up here. I bent this quite a bit trying to smash all these bolts out of here because they were being stubborn. But this, if you follow it down, there's actually a bolt that is holding it together. It's down there. My camera is having fun. You can see it right there. There's a bolt down there. I think that might be the only one. That's the only one I can see, but I'm gonna take that off and see if I can get this unattached. Okay, so there is one bolt that we still need to get this thing loose so we can take it off, and that is mounted to the transmission. You can see I have a little bit of WD-40. There's a bolt right up there that I sprayed with WD-40, and then it's on a bracket that's attached to your downpipe here. So I'm underneath the car and I have to reach that bolt up there, and hopefully it's not seized and rusted like everything else. So another way you can see it is here from the engine bay. If we look down, this is the downpipe, and it's gonna be right down here. There's the bolt that we actually need to get to. See, the best way I got to it is I put the 14 mil on there, an extension. I already popped it loose, but I have my breaker bar down here, and as long as you break it loose, you just have a little bit of a turn with the breaker bar and pop it loose. I got my normal ratchet on here, and now I can actually get this thing off. Now that I have the nut removed there, downpipe should be able to come down, but the one thing I was telling you guys about is right here. It's a little bracket that you have on. You're supposed to take a screw out of there, and see how it has that little lip? You just have to make sure that the bracket that's right here that's connected to the exhaust, you just need to make sure that comes up and over this lip so the whole thing can actually drop down. But anyway, once those are all off, you need to get something in between here, especially for me since I'm sure this is rusted in place. Get something in here nice and sturdy and pry that open. It'll get this all out of the way, and then there's one thing left. There's a little tab that goes down on the exhaust that you might have seen when you took down one of the hangers, but there's a little tab down there. We just have to make sure it's up out of that tab so this whole thing can drop down. But first I need to break this loose. So once you pop it off there and everything else has been done, the whole exhaust just drops out of place like it wasn't even dirt. And there we go. Throw the exhaust over to the side, and the exhaust is out. So now that everything is plumbed up to the turbo, we've got to get the downpipe on. I got the Turbo XS downpipe. So the first thing that you gotta do is put in these little studs that are supposed to go on the bottom three. These top two are gonna be bolts with nuts at the end, and then the other three holes need to have these studs. It's the same process that you need to put two nuts on the end, tighten the top one, and it'll tighten the whole thread into place until it stops. Then you take both of those off and you do it for all three. Once you do that, all the studs will be secured in place, and I already did that, so now I can put the downpipe on. But before I do that, of course, got to get myself a new gasket. Now, if you're wondering where I got the nuts and bolts for the downpipe, here I have them. Got them actually sitting over there because, as you know, all of mine were rusted and seized. Some of them snapped trying to get them off. Honestly, I just went down to Subaru and got the parts. Later on, I found out that AutoZone and some of the other places actually have the exact same things, probably for cheaper than the dealership. So if you need new ones, I would say check out AutoZone, O'Reilly's, you know, your local auto parts store to see if you can find those before heading to the dealership, because I got the 2 bolts for the top, the studs, and of course all the nuts that go around, and it was about $50 just for that. So I really suggest trying to go to another place besides a dealership. Okay, just finished just plumbing this on. I haven't tightened anything up, but a good suggestion is to start with the very bottom one, the one that you can only access from underneath the car. Just the way that the downpipe is and how close it is to the threaded portion, to put the nut on there, you have to make sure it's lifted up. So start with that one and then tighten the rest of them, or else you just can't get to the bottom one once all the other ones are in place. So the next step in our exhaust is going to be our Freeflowing Cat, or if you just have a regular open pipe emission things, I don't know. Anyway, I have the high flowing Cat that comes through here, and the only thing you have to do to make sure this thing fits is make sure it fits the bracket over here on the other side. There it is. It's got, at least the Turbo XS has a bracket built into it, so it goes right into that little clip that we had before when we were taking it off. That's the only thing that's keeping this up right now. Other than that, it comes with 2 little bung holes, one over here and one on the other side of the Cat for your O2 sensor, which I have hanging right here. It's going to have to move because I have mine exactly where it was, still zip tied in place for when I actually replaced it, but it doesn't reach either the one further up or the one further down. So I'm gonna have to cut those zip ties and possibly put this further up or further down depending on which one I choose. I might do this one down here because the one up here is closer to my drive shaft, so that's moving. Maybe over here, depending on how it goes, but it's pretty simple. Just spin it into place, use the bolts, make sure you use some never sees on those, and then we'll move on to the next piece. All right, so I got everything put into place. I've got the gasket in there, both the bolts on there. Problem though, is with this mounting piece here, it did not line up exactly for me. So what I ended up doing is I went up here and I took out one of the bolts and then I loosened up the other one so I could get this into place properly, and then once this is completely into place, I came back to this, tightened up this bolt, and then tightened up the one that was left in there. So this still has support being on here, even though it's not in exactly the right place that the original OEM one was, but still, I mean, it's holding it in place. It's got a bolt holding it up in there, totally fine. So now that I'm done with that, I can move down. Actually, I still have my O2 sensor. I need to reroute this back up and plug it back in up here, zip tie it, make sure it doesn't dangle, and then I'll be done. Next up, we have our mid pipe down here. I've got it sitting like this with the hanger right down there. You can see it because right above we're gonna have it hanging off. Let's change that. We're gonna be having it hang off the hanger right there. Hopefully that'll line up. I doubt it, but here's to hoping. And of course, we've got to plumb it up right there with the screws and bolts that it gave us. Hopefully it gave you. And then down there, we'll see what we can do. All right, looks like we have a success over here. And then if we follow it, that's really, under the car, okay. And then we follow it down, and it actually hooked up fairly well. It's a little tight, but it did fit. It's on the hanger, it's all good. Last but not least, we gotta put the muffler on. So I just quickly threaded in the nuts to the bolt up there just so I could get a test fit, and like I thought, this isn't going to fit. This is the WRX exhaust that I have here, and I'm using a Forester, so it doesn't fit exactly perfectly. The hanger that's back here is nowhere close, so that hanger isn't used at all. But the 2 hangers over here can be used. So if we look up here, I've got one over there. The one I have off here, I have off so I can show you. But these two, if you're using the WRX, I think this is also STI, if you're using this exhaust, then you can still use these hangers, but the stock hangers that you have are too short. They actually need to come down about this far, so you can use the hangers to pop into these. So I have these linked down below. I got these off of Amazon. They came in like 2 days, just like everything on Amazon. But these are much longer. Here is the original one, and here is the new ones. They're much longer, so you can actually hang this without having to do any super modifications. You just get a new hanger so it hangs down more. Here we are, just got both the hangers up. There's the far one over here. This one you just slip into place. This one over here, you just take out that 14mm bolt. The bolt comes all the way through, and then on the inside, you have to make sure you grab that. On the inside of the old one, there's actually a hollow washer, like a thick, I don't know what to call it, but it's like a spacer washer kind of thing. But check inside there to get that through, and then you just put it on the inside of the hole, and then just fit that bolt through. Now I have them both hanging up here. Now I can raise this up and actually put this into place. And once I do, then I can go back over there and tighten up those screws. Whew, those are quite difficult to get off. The holes on these ones are a little bit smaller, so you just have to push really, really hard. Once you get this large beveled out portion here, once you get it through the inside, way easier. Just push it all the way through, but getting it started is just a pain. But once you do, there you go. You have it nice and even, right where it's supposed to be. You've got a little bit of a gap. There you can see, you got a little bit of a gap in between your bumper and your exhaust. I could just barely stick my finger up in there, but that's what you get with those longer exhaust hangers. A lot better. Everything's nice and tucked up now. Just have to come up in here, go back up there, and tighten those up, and the exhaust is done. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram so you can get some behind the scenes stuff that hasn't happened yet and unreleased content that no one else has seen. And if you haven't already, watch that video. And if you watched that video, watch that video. And if you've watched both of those videos already, make sure you subscribe down here. Yeah, watch this stuff. It's awesome. And if you've watched that, and subscribed, I love you.